Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology.
This is Dr. Ishwarya Vardhini, Assistant Professor, Satyabama College of Physiotherapy. So today I am here to take a topic on the respiratory system. So to begin with, I will be dealing with the overview of the respiratory tract as well. So the respiratory system is the anatomical structure which is primarily responsible for the movement of air in and out. So it includes the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi and the lungs. The ease of functioning, this respiratory tract is divided into two types, namely the upper and the lower. So it is nothing but it's only based on the structures and the function they do, it is categorized as well. So the upper respiratory tract begins from the nose up to the vocal cords. The lower respiratory tract includes the trachea, bronchi and the lungs. So I have given the same in the picture as well. So the upper begins from the nose to the vocal cords or the larynx. So the lower respiratory tract begins from the trachea to the lungs as well. So the functions of upper respiratory tract is nothing but it is primarily concerned with the passage of air. So we take in air and primarily the air passage it's by your upper respiratory tract, or in other words it is nothing but the conducting zone of the airway. The lower respiratory tract, as I said, it includes the trachea, bronchi and lungs. These lungs play a major role in the gaseous exchange. So the lower respiratory tract is otherwise known as the site of gaseous exchange or the respiratory zone of the airway. Next, before moving into the lungs, we should see what are the basic structures that are around the lungs. To begin with, I have given some description about the pleura, which is nothing but the covering which outlines the lungs. So the pleura, as such, it is a bilayered serous membrane that outlines the lung. So pleura has two layers, namely the parietal and the visceral. The parietal is nothing but the immediate outermost layer of the lung. The visceral is the one which lines the lung as well. So in between the layers of pleura, you have a pleural cavity or the pleural space which contains a fluid known as pleural fluid. It is a thin serous fluid which is secreted by the visceral layer of the pleura. Moving on to the functions of the pleural layer. So as I said, the main function of the pleura is to allow optimal expansion of the lung, which is nothing but primarily concerned with the overall expansion of the lung as well. Then I said we have a fluid in between both the layers of the pleura. This fluid acts as a lubricant and it allows friction-free functioning of the lungs as well. Or in other words, it doesn't allow both the layers of the pleura to rub against each other. Next, moving on to the tracheobronchial tree. So the tracheobronchial tree forms a major component of your respiratory zone as well. So as from the name itself, we can find out the tracheobronchial tree is made up of the trachea and the bronchi together. It forms a major part of the air passage. So the various components of tracheobronchial tree are listed below. First, the trachea divides into right and left main bronchi. So each primary bronchus, it enters the lung and they divide into secondary bronchi. Secondary bronchi further divide into tertiary bronchi or segmental bronchi. So on the right side there are 10 and on the left side there are 8 segmental bronchi. Then tertiary bronchi further divides into various small divisions known as bronchioles. So when the diameter of the bronchiole becomes 1 millimeter and less, it is known as terminal bronchiole. The terminal bronchiole further subdivides into numerous small divisions. So when they attain a diameter of 0.5 millimeter and less, they will be called as respiratory bronchiole. It is from the respiratory bronchiole your actual functioning unit or the sites of gaseous exchange known as alveoli they begin. So this is a diagram showing the tracheobronchial tree in detail. So as I said, you have the trachea. Trachea divides into right and left main bronchus. So, the point where trachea divides into two is known as carina. So, this right and left main bronchi further divides into secondary bronchi. Secondary bronchi further divides into tertiary or segmental bronchi. So, as I said, there will be 10 on the right and 8 on the left, and these segmental bronchi further divides into terminal bronchiole at the level of 1 millimeter, and they become as respiratory bronchiole when the diameter reduces to 0.5 mm. So, from the respiratory bronchiole, we have the actual respiratory unit. So, the components of the respiratory unit are clearly shown in this diagram. So, the first one is you have the respiratory bronchiole. From the respiratory bronchiole, you have the alveolar duct. Then from the alveolar duct, you have the alveolar sac. Then inside the alveolar sac, you have the antrum. Then final product, final end component will be your alveoli. Next, we need to know about the number of generations in the various divisions of the airway. So, between the trachea and the alveolar sacs, the airway divides into 23 times. So, of this 23, it is divided as 16 and 7. So, the first 16 generations, they form the conducting zone of the airways. So, they are made up of the bronchi, bronchioles and the terminal bronchioles. The remaining 7 generations, they form the respiratory component or the respiratory zone. It's nothing but they are the sites of gaseous exchange. So, they are primarily composed of your alveolar ducts and the alveoli. Next, moving on to the alveolar cells or the pneumocytes. So, alveoli are the main components which allow for exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood as well. Alveolar epithelium, it is a lining which lines the alveoli. It is made up of alveolar cells or pneumocytes which are of two types, namely type 1 and type 2 alveolar cells. Type 1 alveolar cells form the site of gaseous exchange between the alveoli and the blood. On the other side, type 2 alveolar cells, otherwise known as granular pneumocytes, they form a substance known as surfactant, which is primarily essential for maintaining the surface tension of the alveoli, and in turn it reduces or minimizes the collapsing tendency of the lungs. Apart from the respiratory functions of the lungs as well, we have other non-respiratory functions too. They have been listed in the following slide. So, first function is the olfaction. Olfaction is nothing but the sense of smell. So, the nostril has numerous olfactory receptors that are primarily concerned with smell. So, they help in the olfaction. Next is vocalization. Vocalization, it is by the larynx, otherwise known as voice box. Larynx has vocal cords and it, along with other structures, help in maintaining the voice tone of a particular person. Next is prevention of dust particles. Nostrils has a lot of hair particles which serve as a filtering mechanism in preventing the entry of dust particles. Defense mechanism, nostrils has numerous cells like lymphocytes, macrophages, and they play a role in fighting the pathogens that enter the body. Next is maintenance of water balance. When we exhale, the exhaled air has some amount of water. So, during exhalation, this water will be evaporated and some amount of water will be lost by the body. Next is regulation of body temperature. The exhaled air has some amount of temperature, it is warm. So, when it is exhaled, the heat air is sent out of the body. In that way, your body temperature is also regulated. Next is anticoagulant function. The lungs secrete mast cells that is primarily responsible for secreting your heparin, which is nothing but an anticoagulant. This heparin serves a major role in the clotting mechanism as well. Next is regulation of acid-base balance. It is again by the numerous hormonal substances play a major role in maintaining the pH and the acid-base balance of the body. Secretion of angiotensin converting enzyme. The endothelial cells of the lung secrete angiotensin converting enzyme. This is a substance which converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, which plays a major role in the regulation of blood pressure. Then synthesis of hormonal substance. Lungs secrete numerous hormonal substances which is playing a major role in regulation of numerous physiological functions. One important function is your blood pressure. Apart from the respiratory function, we have some respiratory protective reflexes also. First one is the cough reflex, which is nothing but when there is an entry of an irritant into your respiratory tract. This reflex will be activated by the stimulation of numerous receptors inside the lungs, and they tend to expel out the irritant substance by means of coughing. Next is sneezing reflex. Again, this is also the stimulus will be an irritant, but the irritant will be at the level of the nasal mucous membrane. So, when the nasal mucous membrane sends the entry of irritant, we do this sneezing in order to expel out the irritant substance. Last will be the swallowing reflex or the deglutition reflex, which is nothing but when we eat, this reflex will prevent the entry of food particles into the respiratory tract. Thank you.